Herbert's 100 harem. Last day of Parado, and it was one of nothing but relaxation. He had an inner tube that let him just relax on the water. His visor was in welding mode and letting almost no light through. He had a stomach full of seaquake. His bills were paid, and he was just hanging limp and letting the winds blow him around the pool. He doesn't panic or even bothering opening his eyes when a tiny series of claws grabs onto his arm and starts climbing up. A long segmented tail wraps around as well as the Paris climbs onto his chest and settles down on him. You know a species is completely tame when their preferred place to sleep is cuddled up against someone. He doesn't even bother to look. It doesn't matter which one it is. The little scavenger is utterly harmless to everything but a baby, and it's only the risk of a choking hazard if the baby overpowers them. A few minutes later, a few other Paris join him, and there's a slight sound of giggling. Yes, it's probably kind of funny that a bunch of multicolored crabs with long tails are all cuddling up on top of him. But really, it's not like this is all that weird. And so, on the third stop of our galaxy-spanning hunting trip, our husband decided to treat his targets more like getting the groceries, and the sheer exhaustion of acting so domestic wore him to the bone. The Paris descended upon him, instantly mistaking his exhausted body for a corpse. Someone states in the tone of a nature documentary. He raises one hand to give the traditional military gesture of disagreement. But humans are indeed human and exhausted and covered by flesh-eating scavengers. He still proposes sexual activities to his already pregnant wives. Clearly, there is no beast so savage as the human. Really? You're really doing this? He asks, opening his eyes under the visor. It's Neely, a few months to really settle things, and with him making it known that bullying from the more cliqué girls wasn't acceptable, had done wonders for her self-confidence. She was still one of his nerdier girls, but that just meant that after people stopped being dicks, she was the one that usually had answers. After the bullying stopped, he had walked in on her, helping the girls with their schoolwork enough times for it to be a common thing. She was apparently thinking about going into higher education, but wasn't completely sure where to focus yet. The deadly beast is aware of our presence. We must stay still and hope that its vision based on movement passes us by. Those are T-Rexes, not humans. He protests, sitting up and partially dumping the Paris off his chest. Several of them hit the water and swim away. About 3 hang on with their tails for a moment before letting go, and the last one climbs up to his shoulder to be on a flat surface again. Garish little guys is bright blue with orange highlights. Alas, he still has a final victim after his horrific attack on the defenseless scavengers. The human is a lusty beast, and if it is not seeking sexual satisfaction, it seeks to fulfill a deep bloodlust. Neely narrates, and he just gives her an unimpressed look as his visor slides partway down his nose. He slides off the inner tube and swims towards her before climbing out of the pool with ease. The Paris on his shoulder bails partway through to play in the water with its fellows. The mighty beast approaches with clear lust in its soul. Whether it's for my delicate and frail body or my delicate and frail body is unknowable, but clearly doom is upon me, Neely continues, and he sighs before giving the girl a sideways look, and she breaks down into helpless giggles. So I'm not the only one enjoying my vacation. He notes, and she nods as she gets her giggles under control. Good. It's just kind of hard to put the same person who raced up an angry Skathak lava serpent, slaughtered dozens of Maryatha, and snuck up on several seaquakes with the lazy thing spread over the inner tube. She remarks, "What? You think people stay on alert all the time? Doesn't matter how powerful someone is, they let their guard down eventually." He notes, and she smiles before hugging him. "Still, it's good to see you relax. Normally, you're so busy that it's only when you sleep that you seem to be comfortable." "I'm not that bad," he protests. "You sort of are. Back on Centrus, whenever you're awake, you're moving and doing something. always so busy and still not having enough time. When you're on the job, you're hard, focused, and directed. When you're off the job, you're trying to make up for lost time all over the place, always going around, making sure that all arguments are resolved and everyone's happy, and not really noticing that we can tell you're getting tired. Oh. Sorry, he says, and she pulls him in closer. It's a sort of, I know it's real, but it doesn't fully feel real when I really think things through. I'm not only married before my 20s, I'm pregnant. My husband is an exotic alien. Not only that, but he's some kind of super agent. Not only that, but he knows how to use it to be an amazing hunter. It's like out of a holo series. Life isn't supposed to be this way. But it is. Neely gushes and both pause as there's a slight sensation against her pregnant stomach. He's kicking. He wants his space, Herbert notes, and she pulls him in. No, not at all. He wants his daddy nice and close, Neely says. Then there's something that makes him turn his head to the side. Something is there, and after a moment, Neely picks up on it too. Is that? Herbert begins to ask, before suddenly a ship just fades into the visual spectrum and starts to turn to have its broadside weapons pointed right at the resort. Isma hits the enemy ship and burrows into the hull as Herbert carries Neely behind a shack where she can hide. The cover won't stop an attack, but it'll stop her from being targeted too easily. He then grabs his jacket where it was lying on a poolside chair and races to the edge of the roof to jump off and assault the ship personally. He can feel his teeth tingle as he passes through the anti-laser force field and plants a plasma charge on the hull. 2 seconds later, and he jumps down through a burnt-out hole in the hull and lands with a roll as he pulls out a gun. He can hear the screams in the vessel as Isma goes to work, and so he goes into the opposite direction where the people a bit smarter than the currently being slaughtered fools are no doubt heading to. This leads him into the engine room, and he introduces himself to the Gobi in charge by grinding the barrel of his gun into the top of her head. "And what's this about?" he asks the woman as he forces her to her knees with the pressure of the weapon. "I don't know. I just fix things," she protests, and he sighs. "Why did this ship bring its guns to—" "I fix things," she protests as she stretches out her turtleneck sweater and shows that there's an explosive collar there. "My apologies," he says, removing the gun, grabbing the Gobi around the head and phasing her clothing, and pointedly leaves out the bomb collar before pulling her back and away as the device starts to fall. It erupts in a plasma stream that would have cooked her head and neck if he hadn't gotten her out. "Want to fuck over your former owners?" "Yes." Whether it's a cheer of relief or a declaration of agreement isn't clear, but he's apparently got a new minion. She rushes to a nearby terminal and begins by immediately ripping out a panel under it and taking out a collection of knickknacks that she slams together into a tool that she plugs into the terminal and hits it with a massive amount of information and junk data, causing the lights to go every color imaginable before settling on half-power white light. And she turns around to smile. This ship isn't going anywhere or firing on anything, and no internal communications are possible. Will you help me free my sisters and husband? Seeing as you just saved my wives and unborn children, yes, I will. He answers, and his eyebrows go up as he sees that the Gobi must have some interesting ancestry, as she's got about 3 times the standard allotment of teeth. "I'm Galaki," she says as she rushes out of the bridge with Herbert following. "Agent Herbert Jameson." Herbert answers simply. "Agent? Your previous owners attacked a resort with not only a grand hunt mistress, but an agent of the Undaunted on vacation." "The what?" she asks, and he mentally ticks her to being out of contact for a few months or even years. "I'll explain later, but I'm an apex species soldier that looks like a threat." He answers as she leads him into a storage bay that has numerous haunted-looking women with a Gobi man trying to comfort them. "Anyone order a rescue?" That was the worst one-liner I've ever heard. The man states plainly, and Herbert scoffs as he pockets his gun. "Sorry, I'm more the assassination and bomb planting type of agent. The witty one-liners are a thing I've been instructed to never get into the habit of doing," Herbert says, walking forward and then kneeling down to the other man's level. "I do, however, have a skillful phasing technique that will let you slip out of that bomb collar into a safe distance in a heartbeat. Free my wives first. They've been—" The go-be begins, and Herbert simply phases him out of everything non-organic and pulls him away to toss into the arms of Galaki naked as the day he was born. Through a lot? There's a sort of pause as the collar goes to work and burns the man's clothing. There's a pause. "Just so we're clear, were you frustrated with me or trying to give my wives a treat?" the man asks, and Herbert gives him a look. "First, there's time to be selfless and sweet, but a husband is his wife's morale. You being safe is a huge weight off their shoulders. Self-sacrificing is a fine nature to have, but when it hurts those you're sacrificing for, it's just stupid." Herbert scolds him. "Does anyone here have any idea who their captors are, or why they've hit Parado right as the hunting season starts?" "I do," one of the gobies says, and Herbert strides up to her, puts his hands on her shoulders, phases her and her clothing away from the collar and sets her down to the side. "They said that hitting someone who's not hunting while everyone's hunting means there's a huge distraction and an easy target." "Stupid, we finished our hunting," Herbert remarks before going to the next gobe, picking her up under her armpits and phasing her away. The collar drops to the floor and melts it as he sets her down to the side and moves on to the next. "My grandmother-in-law is a grand huntsmistress. She's already turning this ship inside out, and with Galakai killing the computer systems, it's completely one-sided." "Do you think the ship will survive?" Galaki asks as Herbert frees another gobe. "Grandma and I have both punched some pretty big holes in the hull. Aside from that, you've screwed the computer system pretty hard." Herbert answers, and the room deflates despite him freeing the last 3 gobes in rapid succession. "So we're stuck here. If the ship isn't space-worthy, we can't leave this world. We have nothing. You have your lives, your skills, and each other." Herbert answers, and he gets a fierce glare from the naked gobi man. Or formerly naked, apparently he had a spare pair of pants. "That doesn't translate to material goods. Without those, how will we feed ourselves? How will we leave this expensive world without falling into—" The gobi begins to rant and then catches a device that Herbert tossed at him. "A communicator? A limited one, but you can strike a deal with my employer. Skilled mechanics with a strong sense of fellowship are useful. You want a job? We'll foot the bill for the supplies and parts as an advance on your pay." Herbert answers. "Who are you?" the gobi man demands in shock. "Agent Herbert Jameson of the Undaunted Intelligence Division," he answers. "Oh, recruiting again. That's adorable," Isma says, stalking in the room, walking on 5 legs as she drags 2 people by the neck in one hand and has another 3 tied up in her tail. "Anyways, these little idiots wanted a quick raid of goods and supplies. Petty thieves trying to smash and grab. Slavers too. I've been phasing people out of their bomb collars down here." Herbert continues, then the communicator Herbert gave to the gobi man starts to sound off. Hello?" he asks. "Hello there, young man. We've been watching through our agent's visor. Have you given any thought to the offer of being hired on by the Undaunted? We're entirely willing to give you a hefty forward on your pay to repair the ship and buy whatever supplies you need." "Are you people real?" the gobi demands in shock. "Oh my yes, what do you say? Do you want to be transport pilots and mechanics for the Undaunted?" The officer on the other side offers, and the gobi just has a 1,000-mile stare at this point. Herbert takes a picture with his own communicator.